Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to look at AWS's Cloud Hardware Security Module. Now it used to be really hard to get your hands on a HSM. You basically had to work in a security role. Amazon then launched their own hardware security module service, but it was extremely expensive. There was a $5,000 setup fee for each device. So most people couldn't get their hands on it anyway. The service has now changed and it's moved over to utility style billing. It's charged at just over $1 an hour. So it's become a lot cheaper, and now you can get real hands-on experience with HSM, which looks great on a CV if you can say that you know how to set up a HSM, go in there and provision public keys and private keys and store them in there, and then obviously export them and then connect them up to EC2 instances. I mean, these are real valuable things that employers want to know. So we are going to go ahead and do that in this course. We're going to do it after the VPC section of this course. The reason is that we need private subnets as well as public subnets. So we do that at the end of this course. Cloud HSM, by the way, in the exam is probably only worth 1 or 2 questions. It is not a major component of the 2018 exam. It was huge in the 2016 exam, but it looks like that they haven't brought it back in anywhere near as much detail. So the Cloud HSM section is after the VPC section. It's right at the very end of the course, and it is optional. You're doing it to learn how to use Cloud HSM, how to use it in the real world. It is not a heavy topic in the exam, so it's completely optional as to whether or not you want to do that. If you're cramming right now because you've got your exam in like less than 24 hours, then you don't need to go ahead and do it, but I would definitely recommend doing it at some point, because it's really valuable knowledge, especially if you want to work as a security specialist in the AWS cloud. So if a lot of this lecture doesn't make sense at first, don't worry. As we go through the rest of the course, when you actually go and get your hands dirty, you're going to understand this inside out. So what is Cloud HSM? Well, we've been using KMS. Cloud HSM service helps you meet corporate, contractual, and regulatory compliance requirements for data security by using dedicated hardware security modules, appliances within the AWS cloud. So that's the key phrase here, is dedicated. These are dedicated to you. It's not multi-tenant. The underlying hardware is only accessible by you. So that's the difference between Cloud HSM and AWS's KMS. Cloud HSM is the ultimate security platform because you're not sharing it with anybody else. So it enables the control of your data. You can have obviously show that you've got evidence of control by having a Cloud HSM, and you'll be able to meet really tough compliance controls. It also provides you with secure key storage, so we can basically store our public keys and our private keys in there. We can import keys into it, we can generate keys into it, and we can export keys into it. It gives us cryptographic operations, and it's got both tamper-resistant hardware as well as software. So if you try and brute force this, if you try to log in as admin too many times, it will go through and delete itself, and we're actually going to do that in the lab just for some fun. So what is it? Well, it's a box. It looks like this. This is a SafeNet Luna network HSM. AWS don't actually use this. They use Cavium. And we are going to go to Cavium's website to download their root certificate in the lab. So that is coming up. And to compare it with KMS, I mean, basically the main difference is the tenancy model. So Cloud HSM is single tenancy, whereas KMS is multi-tenancy. Both are highly available in terms of the way it's set up. So Cloud HSM, you're going to provision a cluster, and then inside that cluster, you're going to have your different HSM nodes. You can have up to 32 nodes per cluster. You control the keys with Cloud HSM. Inside KMS, Amazon actually, it's a combination of you and Amazon. If you remember from our labs. In terms of integration, both have broad AWS support. The good thing about Cloud HSM is you can have both symmetric and asymmetric keys, whereas with KMS it's only symmetric. And in terms of compliance, it basically passes FIPS 140-2 as well as EAL4. So it will meet very, very tough regulatory requirements. Cloud HSM is quite a bit, well, it's a bit more expensive than KMS, but not very much. It used to be basically unaffordable, especially if you're a student trying to learn cloud. So how does it all work? So we're going to go in and we're going to create a custom VPC in a region that's supported by Cloud HSM. We're going to create a couple of private subnets where we're going to deploy our clusters into. And then we're going to create an EC2 instance. This will be in a public subnet and we're basically going to install some management tools on there. So we've got Cloud Management Util, and that's basically allows us to go in and generate new users. And then we've got Key Management Util, which basically allows us to go in and manage our keys. And then obviously this EC2 instance needs to be in a public subnet, so it's going to need to be accessible by you. So in terms of the actual process, like I said, we're going to create a VPC. We're going to create a private and public subnet. We're then going to create the cluster. We're then going to verify the hardware security module's identity, and I'll show you a couple of slides how we're going to do that in a second. We're then going to go in and initialize the cluster. We're going to launch our client instance and install all our tools on it. We're then going to activate the cluster, set up our users, generate our keys, and we're going to then export those keys to EC2 instances and see if we can log in. So it is going to be quite hands-on. So I'll go through all those steps with you as we go throughout the VPC section. But first, we just should understand how it's secured. So AWS does not have access to your keys with Cloud HSM. There's separation of duties and role-based access as part of the design. So you've got all these different offices within Cloud HSM, or these different users is the best way to describe it. Again, I'm not going to go into too much of the theory in this lecture. I want you to go in and get your hands dirty, and then you'll understand the different users as well. AWS can only administer the appliance. They can't get to the HSM partitions where the keys are actually stored. And AWS can, if they wanted, they could go in and destroy the partitions, which would in effect destroy your keys. But that's that's the only way they'd have any kind of access to it. In terms of tampering, basically the Cloud HSM can detect physical tampering, and the keys will be destroyed. If the Cloud HSM has 5 unsuccessful attempts to access it as a crypto officer, that's a particular type of user, the HSM appliance will erase itself. So the crypto officer is basically goes in there and provisions users. And we'll cover that in the practical part of this course. And then if the Cloud HSM detects 5 unsuccessful attempts of an access using a crypto user credentials, the user is going to be locked out, and it must be unlocked by a crypto officer. A crypto user is someone who has access to generate keys, import keys, export keys, etc., but they can't go in and create new users. Only a crypto officer can do that. Likewise, a crypto officer can't go in and access keys. And again, if this isn't making a lot of sense, we will do it in the VPC section of the course. In terms of monitoring, you should use CloudTrail to log your API calls that's made to Cloud HSM, so then you'll be able to see who's doing what. And if you do have the time, make sure you check out the AWS Cloud HSM FAQs. Like I said, in the exam, there's probably only a couple of questions on Cloud HSM. It's not anywhere near as heavily geared as it was in 2016. That being said, Cloud HSM is one of the fundamental topics you need to understand if you're going to work as a security specialist in cloud, so definitely go and have a read of it. So that's it for this lecture, guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.